Today, the price of kerosene goes up by a whooping 12 shillings and 97 cents, implying a litre will now retail at a maximum price of 110 shillings and 82 cents. A litre of diesel will now fetch 115 shillings and 60 cents, while the price being revised upwards by 7 shillings and 94 cents, while each litre of super petrol will now fetch 134 shillings and 72 cents, with its price having been revised upwards by 7 shillings and 58 cents. The steep rise in pump prices can be attributed to the upward review of supply margins, which should see oil market retailers benefit from the latest review. I promised you we have a conversation about food coming up, and this is a story that will lead us into that conversation. The president may have declared drought a national disaster a week ago, but residents of Garissa County have been facing the impact of the drought for 2 months now and are demanding immediate intervention. Some of the residents have had to use water trucks to deliver water to watering holes, as my colleague Helen Aura now reports.
It has been 2 months of Mother Nature ravaging Garissa County, leaving a trail of death and utter loss. In Shantabak-Lagdera sub-county, livestock carcasses lay a few meters apart, with others barely managing to stand on their feeble fours.
Ile mnaona hapa, ngamia peke yake ndio inaweza fika hapa. Ng'ombe, mbuzi, wala punda hazifiki hapa. Kama kilomita 20 ama 25 ndio watu wanaenda kuchukua maji kutoka hapa mpaka msituni. Hiyo gari busa mnaona usiku na mchana driver halali.
Some residents have been forced to get water trucks to deliver water for their livestock, which are unable to get too far-flung and depleted water holes. Other residents who are not able to have been forced to cross over to other counties to seek pasture. The livestock owners say that despite ongoing efforts to ensure water reaches them in the interior parts, lack of pasture still remains to be a challenge.
When you address the water, you are missing another component. You are missing pasture. You are missing veterinary services. So with lack of pasture, when animals are underfed, a lot of diseases creep in.
They are now asking the government to help them with relief food and animal feed to prevent further death of their livestock. Although Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalo has assured that the government will extend the Hunger Safety Net program to Garissa County to help households affected by drought, it is the hope of residents that this would not only be an empty promise, but a declaration backed by urgently needed life-saving action. Helen Aura, NTV.
A sad state of affairs there in Garissa County, where drought is currently ravaging the counties of northern Kenya, and indeed it clearly paints the picture of how much of a problem the issue of poverty and of course the issue of hunger is indeed in Africa, and why all stakeholders should come on board to urgently address these matters. But that cannot happen if we do not address our food system, so that we can ensure that we sustainably produce our food and we make sure that we end both hunger and poverty in Africa. And to help us, of course, dissect this conversation about transforming food systems in Africa, especially with the focus of the just concluded AGRF summit and the upcoming UN Food Systems Summit later this month. Of course, joining me in studio this morning is Jennifer Ban. She's the Acting Managing Director of the AGRF, as well as the Head of Partnerships with the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, that is AGRA. Good morning, Jennifer. Good to see you.
Good morning, Victor.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Also joining me in studio this morning is Jimmy Kiberu, is the Corporate Engagement Lead at Bayer Crops. Good morning, Jimmy, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Victor, and I'm pleased to see my good friend Jennifer Barnes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting us to this show.
All right, you're very much welcome, Jimmy, and I'm also very pleased to see my friend Rogers Kira. I saw him 4 years ago, and we were having this same conversation about food and agriculture in Africa. Rogers Kira, popularly known as Mr. Agriculture on social media, especially on Twitter, is an influencer and an agriculture enthusiast. He has a very good farm across somewhere in the North Rift, you can visit. Good morning, Rogers. It's good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Victor. Thank you so much, and good to see you.
All right. Good to see you too again, my friend. And maybe, Jennifer, the best place to start this conversation would be to just take a post-mortem of the AGRF summit. I mean, I saw 6 presidents, 20 ministers from across Africa, 8,000 delegates from across 103 countries. By all means, from what I said, this was a huge success for the summit. But let me just listen to your reflections regarding what is the biggest takeaway and then, of course, the entire summit.
Of course, it was not only just a huge success, it was a very necessary success. This is our 2nd year of the COVID pandemic, which really laid bare some of the vulnerabilities in our food systems across Africa. And I think the drought is yet another, climate change, the impact thereof is just yet another trigger that showcases that it's so critical that we put agriculture at the heart of our investment and political agendas. That's number 1. Number 2, that we need to start co-designing, prioritizing, and really showcasing the leadership in terms of how we're going to transform this sector and accelerate our delivery towards our 2030 targets of zero hunger. This is also the year of the UN Food System Summit, which will be held in 2 weeks' time in New York. So the AGRF was really a very critical stepping stone to bring Africa and its partners together to identify the key priorities and the issues and the support that is required to make sure that we support the agriculture sector.
All right. And now that you mentioned the UN Food System Summit, it means this issue of food systems and how we produce our food is clearly receiving attention from the highest level of governments and international organizations like bodies like the United Nations. But for anyone who's watching, how does the AGRF summit then tie into the overall broad agenda of this upcoming summit later this month?
I think in several ways. We've seen strong leadership, and of course thanks to the personal championship of His Excellency Kenyatta in terms of the presidents who attended the AGRF virtually, and of course our former leaders, but also all the different ministers. I think in different ways. We heard from the UN Food System Summit leads who convene national dialogues across Africa. They engaged with stakeholders and reported out as well. And we came out with some of the key priorities that we think that are critical for the African continent. Not only the focus of intensifying production with specific support to our smallholder farmers and women, but also make sure that we live up to our commitments of both private and public investments into the sector, that we focused on really boosting local and regional trade. You earlier mentioned the import bill that Africa carries, that is critical. We also looked into, of course, into innovation. We had over 20 innovators from young startups to more mature companies spread across the continent who are bringing the new type of technology and business models to the continent to really make sure that we deliver on our 2030 targets. So in that sense, the outcomes of the summit, and I think I forgot one important one, complementary commitments and investments by partners. We had over $12 billion of new programs, initiatives, etc. announced at the summit that will also support actors across the ecosystem. So I think we can really hold our head up high as a continent as we're moving towards the UN Food System Summit. We have done our homework. We've had national dialogues across the continent. We have partners who co-committed. We have committed also to mutual accountability, and the AGRF will be there next year to also continue to take stock beyond the UN Food System Summit.
Okay. And now that you mentioned the issue of partnerships and the commitments that came through, it reminds me, Jimmy, clearly from the AGRF summit, the way you guys have partnered with governments and organizations like AGRA, what my key takeaway is that this is not a responsibility that can be left to the government alone. Just talk to us about the importance of bringing the private sector in this whole conversation about food and driving food systems transformation in Africa and ensuring that we end hunger and, of course, poverty in Africa.
Thank you very much, Victor. I think just to underscore what Jennifer has just alluded to, this is a monumental obligation for everyone involved in this sector. If there is anything that is most important in the world today, is the issue of food, because if it's not well managed, it can easily become a political challenge. I think the worst thing you can do is to have a hungry, angry nation at any one time. And what we saw in the course of the last week during the AGRF summit, which I must say was an excellent showpiece for Africa, and I would like to compliment our partners, the AGRF and AGRA, and everyone else who was involved, because it was such a huge success, you know, for almost 5 days of immense debate, discussions, awards, recognitions, and everything on a very important topic of food. Victor, they say that if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you've got to go together. And what happened with the AGRF summit in the course of the last week was a demonstration. I would say it was leadership in action, with the AGRF providing a platform for partners to come together to address a very important topic called food and food security. Okay. So coming to your question about the issue of partnerships, as Bayer and indeed the rest of the partners that were involved in this was a very pertinent opportunity for us to show how much can be achieved when we work together as partners. I mean, the numbers have just been put in front of you. During such a difficult time when we have COVID, when we have conflict, when we have climate change issues and so on, for us to pull through such a summit was hugely successful. And I think when I look at the partnerships, I think one is that the partners are able to bring and buttress the ability of the public sector. I mean, partnerships literally bring, it's a public-private partnership in action. Call it a marriage of the public sector, private sector working together. And that might look like a wizard, but within that you've got quite a number of complex stakeholders coming together. You've got the media, you've got the governments, you've got the private sector players, the farmers, and everybody coming together to work and address a very important topic, of food security. Okay. So as partners, obviously, we see that one, we're able to come together in this summit, first of all, to engage. Secondly, also to provide solutions. And when I talk about solutions, I'm talking about providing tangible solutions. We always talk about solutions that are unique and unique to Africa and work for Africa. Okay. We know that the smallholder farmer is one of the most disadvantaged in this particular context. Okay. And when you look at the plight of the African farmer today, he faces a myriad of challenges. I've talked about the three, some of the C's, which is the conflict, climate change, we've got the COVID-19 challenge, we've got the markets, and so on. Okay. So the partners obviously are able now to come together to demonstrate that A, they are bringing solutions that will help to address and assist the African farmer. Yeah. Secondly, they are able to help governments and our public and our sectors in the NGO world and also the AGRF sector in terms of providing technological solutions to the food security issue, because companies like Bayer, for example, invest quite a lot in research and development. This investment is in billions of euros. Okay. And governments might not be able to do this on their own. You can only do it by coming together and working as one. Okay. Thank you, Jimmy. And definitely part of the reason why we've always struggled with this thing of feeding ourselves as a continent is there's always been also the factor of how much of a role the youth and women are given to play in this whole ecosystem. And for a very long time, we've always felt that has been downplayed. But in this year's summit, I felt like the AGRF organizing committee intentionally tried to increase and make it much more active. That is the participation of young people. Rogers is with us. Rogers, just talk to us about your reflections about the participation of young people in this year's summit, especially your takeaways with regards to the high-level youth town hall.
Thank you so much, Victor. And I would really want to say that during this year's AGRF, I think there was a number of young people really attending, either physically or even those who are attending virtually. if you really attended the AGRF in Nairobi, most of the events that were really taking place were really being taken over by the youth. The youth were even the speakers and even those who were really manning and taking over the entire program at the AGRF. Also, I think I can say that AGRF has been a boost to the young people, because some of the competitions that were really taking place during the AGRF, these are the competitions like the go-getters competition. The youth, the young people were the people buying these. They are the people who are really being awarded for their innovative solutions that they are really taking into consideration to really help out in the issues on food system. Okay. Those even who were there was even the young people who were showcasing the 4K club. This is whereby we are trying to transition from the young people in schools to really get into agriculture. So we are the young people are really taught on matters of agriculture from their young ages. That is when in their primary school, so that when they get into high school, and even get to the university from high schools, they can really appreciate the art of agriculture. Okay. Because we realize that most young people don't get into agriculture simply because they think agriculture is meant for the old. Agriculture is meant for those who never went to school. So we are trying to change the perception, and that is why we had the 4K clubs taking part in this year's AGRF Summit. Across the deal rooms, whereby we had investors coming on board, we even had these young people given the opportunity to pitch and even meet these investors. And I met a number of young people out there, and even had talks with them. And these young people were telling me that I've had a call from this investor. We are now organizing as we are in the final stages of making bringing out a deal from the deal rooms that really took place at the AGRF. Okay. Yes. So I think this year's AGRF was a bit focused on the youth. And that is why even we had the youth town hall, whereby we had the president taking part in the town hall, and even had young people interacting with the president. Okay.
So young people literally ran the show at the AGRF Summit in 2021, but I'm much more interested in how young people can literally run the show in our farms today, in our agriculture sector in the country, so that they can help in transforming Kenya and Africa's food system, so that we can all work towards that goal of ending hunger and, of course, poverty.
I didn't get you, Victor, well.
Yes, what is the role of the youth in now this very long-term goal of ensuring that we increase food production in Africa, we transform our food systems and ensure that indeed Africa is food secure?
Young people are really, they are the key, they are very key at trying to transform the food system. And that is why we've always championed for the involvement of youth in the entire the conversation across the value chain, across the food systems, across in the food system. We really want these young people to really take part in the conversation, so that they can be part of the decision makers in the food system. We also we know that young people are very innovative, and that is where in the food systems we need a lot of innovations to really bring out the change that we really yearning to get in this field of agriculture. So the young people are the innovative agents to bring out the change in the food systems. So the youth have a key role in trying to really make the food system work. For us.
Jennifer, let me come back to you on the issue of the AGRF Summit, because I mean, clearly it was a success, but part of that success has come from the commitments, because for these food systems to be transformed, for us to be able to increase our food production and do so in a very sustainable way with issues of climate change, it has to come with leaders committing and pledging to say, you know what, we are going to do this, and we're going to do this the right way. What were some of the key takeaways and commitments that you picked from this year's summit?
So a couple of things. Leadership is critical, yes, but it's not only leadership at the top. It's leadership really across the board. One of the key takeaways for me was really the intergenerational leadership that was celebrated at the HRF. We just spoke about the youth and how they literally took over the summit through programs, through awards, etc. Startups and young innovators were celebrated their achievements, but we also looked at science and the importance of our scientists and how they are taking the lead. ICRASET was awarded the Africa Food Prize this year for the work that they're doing in seed development for not just nutritional purposes but also semi-arid areas. So I think that's also critical to celebrate also the leadership that is sometimes behind the scenes. And also the agribusiness deal room was mentioned, where we had 4,000 entrepreneurs engaging with hundreds of investors and presenting together with their governments a $5 billion pipeline. It takes committed championship and change makers across the board to actually mobilize that type of pipeline. Looking then, of course, as at a senior leadership, the engagement, this is the highest number of both sitting and former presidents that we've ever had at any HRF, and I think that gives a clear signal. I think there are two key takeaways that I took from the leadership engagement at the HRF this year. Number one, also through the words of His Excellency Kenyatta, that agriculture is once again at the heart of their agenda, and that it's critical, and that they acknowledge the importance of youth, that they also see the connections, and they're not just talking about agriculture and productivity from a farm perspective. They look at it from a food systems perspective. So I think the narrative and the language has changed. That's one, and they're willing to come back year on year to basically report out in terms of what is happening. But number two also are former presidents, championed by the chair of the HRF, His Excellency Haile Mariam, the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, who really took the lead this year as well and had their own Elders Council where they spoke about priorities, where they shared their wisdom, and where they also committed support to be there in their journey for the rest of the continent, year on year, to track progress. So I think in that sense, we really saw a very strong commitment that will resonate throughout the years that we should pick up. But I really would like to state that again. The leadership has to come from all of us. One of our taglines was that this is our time. This is our time to commit on an individual level, on behalf of our institutions, on behalf of our farmers. This is our time, and everybody has a role to play, Victor. You as well.
And I like the thank you. And I like the issue of commitments, because for also a very long time there's also been the issue of we have been committing for too long. Are we actually, fulfilling these promises?
I hear you. And you know, the HRF was hosted here by the Kenyan government in 2016 as well, where there were a range of commitments also made and seen, and we've seen the government coming through on some of these commitments, right? The Big Four agenda. We also had the CEO of Equity Bank, James Mwangi, coming back, basically stating how they have executed the commitment that they made in 2016, and they are recommitting to millions of farmers in Kenya. So I think with commitments also should come accountability, and that's why I think where the HRF and the 23 partners behind the HRF, including Bayer, including the government for one, and many of our partners like the AFDB, IKEA Foundation, who also made significant commitments this year, and the Rockefeller Foundation, that is where actually the accountability also comes in, because we will be meeting year on year. Next year we're convening in Kigali under the championship of His Excellency Kagame, and we will be talking about what was committed this year in Kenya, how we are progressing, what the challenges and the bottlenecks are, and how we have to work together to address those.
Okay, before I cross over to Jimmy, I still have one more concern, because very brilliant commitments, policies that of course were picked up, and deals that were signed from the deal room. But one would wonder from all this conversation, because I'm just thinking about maybe my mother and my grandmother in the village with just an acre of land. The fear sometimes is what is being discussed in the boardrooms only caters for the big boys, the large scale farmers.
A very, very genuine concern, and this is also something that we're taking at heart. in the end, how does this trickle down and impact a smallholder farmer in the villages? I think that is key. And first and foremost, just like we engage the youth, it's very critical that farmers are at the heart of the conversation, but also in the conversation. We at the AGRF also have a farmer forum of all the farmer leaders engaging, committing, and also holding us accountable. But this year we also did something else. Establishing this hybrid model really gave us the opportunity to be as inclusive as possible. That means everybody in the smallest village with a mobile phone can engage in the AGRF. And we also had farmer hubs. This year we did it in 4 countries where different farmers and farmer leaders would gather together and engage in the AGRF, engage in the farmer forum, discuss and reflect on what was mentioned, and also highlight what their priorities were and what they would like to see. I would really like to expand that. So next year, from all the different villages and the millions of farmers that we're working with, I would like to include them in the AGRF.
Okay. And part of the people you're working with, other than, of course, the small-scale farmers, are the partners, and BEA are here to represent them. Maybe from where you sit, Jimmy, talk to us about part of the initiatives that you've put in place and what has worked and what has not worked so far.
Thank you so much, Victor. I think in terms of what has worked and what has not worked, I'll say that we don't have a single silver bullet. We've been engaged through this collaboration with a lot of our partners, because you see, when we come together, we're able to look at this, this food security issue from a 360-degree angle. So one of the issues that, some of the things that have worked, for example, has been to, collectively pull our ideas and, put them in, put them all together. I can give you the very, some recent challenges. If you remember, in the course of 2020, right in the middle of the COVID crisis, one of the challenges that we had, for example, apart from COVID, suddenly we found ourselves in the midst of a locust invasion, which came and decimated lots and lots of food for a number of smallholder farmers. And obviously we risked, having a health crisis becoming a hunger crisis. So one of the through this kind of collaboration, bringing swift and tangible actions or solutions that work very fast, we were able to work with our partners that Jennifer has alluded, including especially government, because government at least was demonstrating leadership from the front. And we were able to bring our resources, and during that time we were able to support our partners, as a private sector, to provide a solution to mitigate the locust swarms that were decimating large swaths of vegetative matter, crops, and so on across. So we saw private sector being able to bring valuable investment dollars to address an existential challenge. In other things, in terms of what else has worked, has been an ability to set the agenda in terms of policy. What kind of policies need to be changed? And we've seen some very interesting conversations taking place. And these conversations have brought together all the players of the agriculture sector. If I can give an example, just before I think it was around 2020, just before 2020, we saw a fragmented agriculture sector coming together under an umbrella called the Agriculture Sector Network, ASNET, which brought together all the various value chains, bringing them together to look at agriculture, collectively, bringing all the players to come and have these conversations. In terms of so to come to your question, in terms of what has worked, it has been this demonstration of leadership, acting with speed and precision, and also an ability to set the agenda. And I think, Victor, I'll also throw this same challenge also back to the media. Sometimes I think we've not given this important conversation, a fair shake, or given it the importance it deserves. If you look at the conversations that dominate our media, sometimes they tend to be, we tend to give greater importance sometimes to the trivial issues, and we sometimes relegate the very important issues of food security and only deal them as a by the way. And that's why you see, in terms of what has worked, it has been an ability for us to shout amidst all these challenges, to say, hey, this is a very important issue. We need to address the issue of food security. We need to get all the players working together, and also government to work hand in hand. In the past, we used to have a lot of silos, even the players. If I look at this sector, you had everyone working in silos. But you see, when we come together, we've been able to, I mean, the sum of the parts has become a lot bigger because we are able to contribute our ideas, we've been able to contribute our resources, our innovations to improve and impact the issue of food security.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think you rightfully even answered what would have been my next question, which should have been, why should I care to join this? But let me just bring in Rogers at this point, because Rogers, part of the reason why sometimes people are a bit reluctant and young people are a bit reluctant to go into agriculture is they're just thinking, what am I going there to do? Talk to us about the opportunities that are in the agriculture sector for young people.
Thank you so much, Victor. I think the opportunities for the youth in agriculture is a bit diverse. We have opportunities in the science space, whereby the young people can really get into research. We have the opportunities in the engineering, whereby we have the young people who are really trained in engineering can come and really take part in establishment of industries, establishment of even applications that can really work for these people in the agriculture space. We have opportunities in the finance, whereby we can have the people who are trained in finance taking part in accounting in the various parts in the agriculture space. We also have opportunities in the marketing, whereby we can engage the young people who are really trained in marketing to really sell the agricultural products. We have also opportunities in the export industry, whereby those people who really are good in doing marketing can really take part in the export industry, whereby they can export the agricultural commodities to the outside world. Also, I think in the agriculture across the value chain, whereby we have a number of activities taking place across the value chain, from the production to the marketing to whereby we need innovative solutions to really fast track issues along the value chain. We can really engage young people across the value chain, because farming is not only about tilling land and producing. Farming even entails a number of activities along the value chain. You can take part in the export market. You can take part in tech, whereby you can really be making applications that can really solve a number of problems our farmers are going through.
Okay.
So there are a number of diverse opportunities across the value chain.
Okay. Jennifer, what I'm picking from Rogers is the value chain is really big and a bit longer for anyone. You don't have to be the person. Even if you don't have land, you can still be in agriculture. But just coming back to the very same issue then, part of the reason we're trying to involve the youth is because our population is actually very much growing. And there are people who are a bit worried that if we can't feed our population now, and we're thinking we could double by 2050, should we be concerned? Should we give up?
Give up, never. Should we be concerned? Absolutely. Should this be urgent? Totally. But engaging with the youth and with people like Rogers is always very interesting. And I would really like to quote one of our youth leaders. It's a young lady who actually set up a business growing mushrooms. As a result of the COVID pandemic, lost her job and set up a farm. And she had the following quote, and she said, "What I learned from working in agriculture is that you can make money where you are." She's an urban farmer, and you can make money in farming. And I think the key concern that we also have here is, how do we make farming more attractive to youth? Making them more passionate, lowering the threshold, what we're doing with the 4K Club, absolutely. But we also need to have very concrete incentives for youth. Access to finance, for example, access to land, access to new technology as well, and also celebrate their achievements, connect them to markets. So giving up hope, no, we're definitely not there yet. And I think the HRF this year definitely showcased that across the ecosystem everybody's ready, that we have to start talking about food systems, not just about production, not just about how we connect to markets, but the entire food system. We even had chefs at the HRF talking about their perception on food and the issues involved. That is the type of thinking that we need to start integrating, but we have to bring in the supportive mechanisms to make sure that farming becomes an attractive value proposition for young people, for women, for anybody across the board. Victor, in 10 years' time, I want all of us to be in farming, either as investors, either as farmers ourselves, in any part of the value chain, setting up restaurants, etc. Let's build our food systems across Africa. We have the world to show what it is that we can do on this continent. Let's do it.
Okay. But I'm also looking at this figure of what we currently spend, and I mentioned in my intro that we spent in 2016, it's estimated that the figure is $35 billion US. That figure is expected to grow to 110 by 2025. Are you a bit concerned by this?
Absolutely. And that's why we are doing what it is that we're doing with our partners. That's why we continue to stay this, because this $110 billion should be generated on the continent, should be earned by businesses, companies, farmers, etc. on the continent, and even beyond. The world population is growing. There will be more demand for food out there as well. So we should see this as this is the next frontier. We should start growing the businesses, the traders, the technologies that can assist us in feeding the continent, but also beyond that, feeding the world.
Okay.
This is $1 trillion opportunity for all of us involved.
Okay. If you look around, there are countries, by the way, that spend not even 1% or even 0.5% of maybe of their budget in food imports. Do you think we could get to a situation where Africa doesn't need to import food? That we can eat everything produced within our borders?
I think that should be the next target, isn't it? Zero hunger, that's number one. And then basically being self-sufficient, that is number two. It's to me, it's not even a dream. It's something that we should really put as one of our key targets and headlines. There will always be international trade. There will always be commodities traveling all over the world. But I think it needs to be a key priority.
Yeah.
That this continent becomes self-sufficient, and I think that regional trade has a key role to play in that, and making sure that we harmonize our policies and our standards, and that we start executing the appropriate policy interventions. I think that's all critical to that.
Okay. Jimmy, let me come back to you then. For anyone who has been looking at what you've been doing with the AGRF, and maybe perhaps even partners have tried to approach them, but they're a bit, what you'd say, a bit hesitant, what did you have to say to them?
I think one message I would say is that, first of all, this is something that affects us all. No one has, the solution. So I would say that we all have a role to play. This is a very big challenge that requires us working together. It's a non-competitive area. It's part and parcel of our collective, undertaking. If you look at the commitments that have been made globally and at a continental level, we came from the Millennium Development Goals about a decade ago, which translated into the current Sustainable Development Goals, where zero hunger is a key objective. And then within that, for the African governments, there was that very important protocol, the Malabar Protocol, which was entered, I think, around 2014, which calls for greater investment into agriculture by African governments, a bigger place, more prominent role, of facilitating youth and women in agriculture. We know very well that one of the most marginalized groups, for example, in agriculture is the youth. I mean, you've just had the average age of, I think, a farmer in Africa is around, and in this country particularly, is around 60. And that's a big challenge. I mean, if we want to make this sustainable, we must make sure that the youth, the women are part and parcel of this conversation. Okay. So to the partners, I would say we need to come together and have an inclusive conversation that touches every facet of us, and we all have a role to play. There's this famous saying that if you think you're too small to make a difference, then you've not slept with a mosquito. I think what this essentially says that we can all make a very vital and valuable contribution. We as private sector, for example, will be able to bring our innovative and technological solutions to make sure that farmers have quality, reliable seeds that will give them a better harvest, because we know that land is inelastic. So for a farmer who is farming a piece of land that's about maybe 25 decimals, the only way he can increase his productivity is going to be through embracing better agronomic practices, using better seeds, and also having quality products that help him deal with the challenges of pests and diseases. So So we all have a role to play. We've had the commitment by, from some of our private sector partners who have pledged to increase their investment. I think one of the banks, I think it was Equity Bank, who said that they're going to make sure that about 30% of their lending is going to go to agriculture from 3%. Now that is a very bold commitment. So we all have to make sure that we make these conversations happen, and without holding back. I mean, food is so important to be left to government alone.
Okay. All right. Rogers, the last time I met you, which was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, you were already in this agriculture thing, and we were all amazed by what you're doing. But I'm just wondering what the lessons you've picked over the last 5 years that would be useful to any young man, young woman out there who's looking to go into agriculture.
Victor, I would really want to say that for the young people out there, I would really want to tell them that agriculture is a field like any other field. You must really toil, you must really go out there and really work so that you can make money. We always say that there is something called grit. Agriculture really needs grit. Grit, I would want to say, is greatness requires internal toughness. You must be tough so that you really make it in this space of agriculture. For the young people who are out there who really want to get into agriculture so that you really make easy money, agriculture is not for you. Agriculture is not a go make money easy enterprise. So you must really work so that you really to make the money that you really want to get. Farming is not all about tilling land. For the young people, I would really want to say, farming is not all about tilling land. You can really get out there, get something that you are really passionate about, from even doing transport, marketing, and really get into the agriculture value chain and make it there. Also, I would want to say, because one of the many challenges that I've always got from the young people is I don't have money to get into agriculture. I would want to tell the young people out there, you can always start small. There is no other field. There is no field that you really want to get and you really want to start up there. You must really start small and really grow and make the step that are needed so that you get up there. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rogers. Before we close this conversation, Jennifer, I'm also curious. I mean, 2021, AGRF, a very big, a huge success, commitments, partnerships, deals. But what would wonder? So we've finished. What next?
What next? So the AGRF is a year-round platform. It's not just the event that we have in September. So between now and September 2022, where we will be taking the AGRF to Kigali, we have over 10 thematic platforms that really have topics and themes like youth engagement, the agribusiness deal room, food trade, sustainable farming, etc., that will be working throughout the year with our partners to not only design the program but also for next year, but also align initiatives to shape accountability frameworks, to engage with actors and stakeholders across the continent. For example, the deal room will continue to match SMEs to investors. Our food trade coalition will continue to support policy documents, etc. So throughout the year we will be working to 2022 and we'll come back better, stronger, and even more inclusive. And don't forget, the AGRF itself will be repositioning itself, will be rebranding as well to be supportive to this whole movement that has been created around food systems. And I do promise we will hold each other accountable for what we committed to and what needs to happen towards 2030.
You can count me on the part of holding each other accountable. Jimmy, I'll give you 30 seconds to give us your closing remarks on behalf of the partners. 30 seconds.
I think on behalf of the partners, I would say that we shall continue to collaborate, we shall continue to partner, and we shall also continue to deliver our commitments. On our part, as a private sector, and if I can speak specifically for Bayer, we have our sustainability development, our sustainability goals, and one of them is impacting 100 million smallholder farmers. And close to a third of that is going to be here in Africa. And we are already working in that direction, ensuring that we are having the conversations, ensuring we are providing the innovative solutions, and also ensuring that we are with the farmers and also part and parcel of the conversation. That's why we were present, and we partnered with the AGRF at this summit.
Yeah.
And I must say that it was time and time and resources well spent, and we shall continue to do this. This is part of our DNA.
Okay, Rogers, 20 seconds for your parting shot. Rogers?
Oh, my parting shot, I would really want to say thank you to the AGRF team having had a fruitful engagement during this year's AGRF meeting in Nairobi. I would want to tell the young people out there that farming is for us all. And as an advocate for the young people in the agriculture space, I would really want to tell them that we really need more of us young people into the field of agriculture, because we are the biggest population right now. Okay. We comprise of about 60% of the general population. So we must really get into agriculture if we need food for tomorrow. We must get into agriculture if we need job opportunities for us the young people, because agriculture is one of the an opportunity whereby we can get more job opportunities for us the young people. So let's get into agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Regis. Jennifer, I'll allow you to close the conversation for the last 40 seconds.
You're invited to the AGRF 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda, as a participant, but also, of course, as a partner. Feel free to reach out. We have to do this together. This is our time to address hunger and food security in Africa. Thank you.
Where can we reach out? On social media, maybe? On
social media. And yes, we'll make sure that our social media accounts is available, the AGRF website and on all of our social media accounts.
All right, those accounts that are at AGRF as well as at AGRA. You can reach out to any of them if you want to be part of the AGRF 2022 Summit in Kigali, Rwanda. That's where we leave this conversation. We can't exhaust it. It has to continue online and even offline with people like Rogers Kirwa, of course, who's my guest this morning, Mr. Agriculture himself, as well as Jimmy Kiberu, the corporate engagement lead at Bayer Crop Science, and of course Jennifer Ban. She's the acting managing director for AGRF, as well as the head of partnerships at the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, popularly known as AGRA. From me and the entire team, that's where we'll leave it. But after this quick break, of course, we will be back with yet another exciting conversation. Don't go too far.